All right, everybody, welcome back to the OffBeat Sports Podcast. Come out, great product to power your workouts.
I just have Lipton iced tea.
All right, so as you can see,
Sorry. You
we're
just added a
back.
Celsius logo across that thing.
As you can see, we're joined back by one of the OGs, Voci. He's going to be back in the mix. So usually it would be me, Voci, and Harry hosting these, but Harry couldn't make it tonight. So me and Voci are going to run this one.
So now everyone's screwed.
Yeah, so welcome back, Voci. All right, so today we're going to talk about we're going to go through the list of free agents from the Patriots roster from last season.
There's 19 of them.
Go over each one, see who we think they should keep and who we should get rid of and move on from. So we'll just jump right into it. I mean, so first one I got on my list is Trent Brown, offensive lineman. I mean, he played 7 games this season.
Are you just going like in random order as to who's an unrestricted, or are you gonna do like?
Yeah, I'm doing unrestricted. Okay. Unrestricted.
Okay, that's fine.
So Trent Brown's the first one, our offensive lineman. He played 7 games this season. He had a rough start to the season, like not being able to get on the field. But once he got on the field, he was good. He was efficient. He did his job. I like him. He's just the question is injuries. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's good to bring back, but at the same time, it's like he's been in and out, and I think that they've drafted well at line. So like if they lost him, I feel like they could make up with it in the draft. Whereas like some other positions we're going to get to, it's kind of like you don't really have success drafting there. But with this, you do. So I think it's like if you lose him, then like it's fine. But at the same time, he's how old now? He's 28. So I mean, there's other players in the league who have signed similar contracts, but they're a little bit younger. Like Darrell Williams, he signed a 3-year contract, $24 million. Like when he just in comparison, and he made $8 million. And he was 28 when he signed it. So I think if they bring him back, it's going to have to be like something a little bit smaller than what he's made before.
Yeah, I think if you're going to bring a guy like that back, you're going to have some confidence he's going to be on the field for you guys. I wouldn't do it long term. I would keep it on more shorter deals. I wouldn't go these longer deals just because, especially if he's not ended up on the field like a lot, he's getting injured a lot. You want to be able to make sure you can dump him as soon as possible. So
yeah,
for me overall, he's a keep. He's a keep, but my confidence is lacking on his ability.
I would say you bring him back if he is willing to take like a team-oriented deal and be part of it, because I think you have, if you play it well, you can have equal to better a year next year than you have this year. In the future years, I don't really know, just because of the way that the age is going with the team, besides some of the few young guys you've brought in. But next year, I think you can have a good year. And if he wants to be a part of that, then bring him back on a team deal. If not, I think you can still replace him in the draft, and you have plenty of guys that can step up. So,
all right. Next on my list is Devin McCourty.
I was going to say, I thought you were going by talent. So I was like, when you didn't say him first, I was like,
yeah, long-time safety for the Patriots. Great leader. I think he's a definite bring back. Not on a long deal, but I think if you can get him on a shorter deal, I think he's a definite bring back for me. He had a pretty good season this year, and just from a leadership standpoint, you need depth at these in the defensive back positions, and I think he gives you that leadership for some of the young guys that you're probably going to end up drafting.
I think you'll have to bring him back, but I think at the same time, like you have to start to work in the next kind of like set of your defensive starters, because I think they've started to do that. And I think
you got Duggar and Phillips.
I think they've started to do that, but I think at the same time, like I like Duggar a lot, but he's kind of like I can't think of his name, but he retired like last year or whatever. And I think you bring him back, but I think he's nearing retirement. He's almost 35. So
Chung.
Yeah, so Chung, he's like kind of like a Chung type player, whereas like, yes, I guess you could say Phillips is more of like a Mccordy, but it doesn't really, he's not, no one's Mccordy. So yeah,
I think he's back Mccordy, but
if Mccordy comes back, it's going to be a short deal, and it's probably going to have to be it's going to be a short deal, and you're not going to honestly have to probably pay him. If it's his last contract, he might like give you some.
I think
not pay him, but like he could just retire. Like if he really wanted to, he could just walk away. or he could go to another team for like a year. Like he could go sign it with a team like if he really fucking wanted to. If you think about it, like any like really high up team that's like that does like what the Rams did this year, where they just bring in as many like nasty veterans as they can. Like he could just wait out on that and do that if he really chose to. So if you're the Patriots, I think you got to bring him back on like a at least like probably a 2-year deal. It's probably what he'd want. And I think he'd probably play out this year and then see how he feels and possibly retire. If not, he plays next year and that's it. Or like 2 years from
So
now.
he's a keep for me. Keep for you.
Yeah, bring him back.
All
I mean,
right,
I don't
JC
think
Jackson.
you're better off with him.
Yeah, JC.
You obviously bring him
next
back.
on my list. He's a definite bring back. Pay that man. I don't think there's any argument with that. Bring that man back. He's a guy that gets you turnovers and can guard. He's not like a Trayvon Diggs who can get you some interceptions but then gets burned in the next play. He's got
Trayvon
the
Diggs
package.
sucks.
I think you pay that man.
He sucks. He's so overrated. So it's not about him right now, so I'm not going to get into it. But Diggs sucks. Yeah.
I think
like, cool. You can use or lurk like 8 picks a season. That's awesome. You gave up like 3,000 yards, dude. Like, I don't really know. You're not really that good.
All right.
Yeah, you bring back JC. I think he's going to be the key to your secondary for years to come now, at least the next like 4 or 5 years, especially if you bring him back, because he's 26 now. I mean, by the time you sign him to a 3-4 year deal, by the time ends that, he's 30. And I think you already by then you're drafting guys that are going to begin just like Mccordy to take the next step and come in just like JC did. So I think you definitely have to bring him back because he's the key to your secondary going forward, especially if Mccordy retires. Then you're relying on
after you let Gilmore walk.
You let Gilmore walk, and if McCordy leaves, then you're basically screwed if you don't have JC too. You need him.
Next on the list is pretty much controversial one all season. Donta Hightower, who's been great for us in the past, has won us some.
Can I say this first?
He was pinnacle on that comeback against the Falcons. I think
this isn't even about like those games or why I would think he needs to be brought back. Bill Belichick hasn't drafted well at the linebacker position. And every single year, it seems like he kind of reverts back to guys that he already has trust with, whether that's bringing back Jamie Collins or what's his name? Who'd they bring back? He was on the Dolphins. Van Noy. Like, he keeps doing that because he keeps drafting guys and they're not playing out. Like, Jawan Bentley hasn't really played out.
He's been fine.
He's been okay. But last year when he was the starter and he was when he was the main guy, like last year on that defense, not that defense was nasty or anything, but they were like the highlight of the team because the offense was so bad. Not last year, but 2 years ago, I guess, with Cam and all that shit. I think really like you have to bring him back, mainly because you don't have a better option behind him. Unless you're going to bring in someone that you're going to draft this year. But even then, I would draft someone high up this year and you can like rotate him in with Hightower because Hightower's on the way out. Hightower's like 32. So by the end of next season, he'll be 33. He's got maybe 2 years left in him before, and even though he took off last year, but they were speculating.
To be honest, I think he retires, but
he was speculating not coming back last year. So if he's going to come back to you, you have like a maximum of a year or 2 years with him. So you have to draft someone behind him. But I think that's why you have to bring him back.
I think it's a waste of money. You need to start bringing in quicker linebackers. You got to bring in some speed.
Well, it's not even that. I think he's he's been a key to the Bill Belichick defense for a few years. So if you're going to bring in someone, especially like a draft guy or even a young player, you want someone that can mentor that guy. Just the same thing as like the McCourty thing. Like if you're going to bring in the next wave of players, you want these guys here to mentor them and turn them and help them.
I agree in a sense. Like you could use the leadership, but I think for the price you'd probably have to pay for that leadership, and also
plus you really don't have.
I think with linebackers, the league's getting quicker, and you got to get quicker on defense, and I think
they haven't really done a good job of that. They haven't really done a good job of that, and it doesn't leave me with any evidence they're going to do that. If you think about it, they brought back Jamie Collins, they brought back Van Noy, they haven't really played any of their young guys. What about like it's Anthony Jennings? They've had like a few linebackers they've drafted, but you haven't seen anything
Perkins,
of that. They've had guys that they've drafted, and you hear like these great things about these players, and then I feel like you haven't seen them. And I know he's not like a linebacker, but like. What's his name there? The blonde kid.
Winovich.
He's like Winovich. Like you've had, but he's kind of like a D end.
He's like an outside guy.
Yeah, he's an outside guy. But even so, like he could play an inside linebacker role if he really wanted him to. But you don't even see the get him in the field because they keep bringing back veterans. Mm-hmm. So at the same time as I want him back, it's kind of like.
Yeah, I think you go younger, quicker on the defensive end. So I'm good. I'm good letting Donta Hightower walk. I think he retires. To be honest with you. But
If he doesn't retire, I'd want him back, but I wouldn't pay him like a shit ton of money, and I wouldn't really like rely on him to be my number one. You'd need
so
someone else behind him.
you'd like to keep him if he doesn't retire?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think drop him, but I see what you're saying. All right. So next on my list is offensive lineman or offensive guard Ted Carris.
He's a backup center too.
Yeah, I think bring him back. Why not give you some depth or with an offensive line which has had a history of some injuries and some like moving pieces. I think bring him back. You get the depth. I mean,
It's
he's
kind of the same thing with like Trent Brown though. It's like he's good and he's been in your system, and he left and went to Miami for a year, I'm pretty sure, to start as center for them, and then came back to you. And like, so he like fits well in your system, and he played a couple games when Andrews was out, even this year, I'm pretty sure. And like, he fits and it works, but at the same time, like, I feel like you can draft. That's the one place I think Bill Belichick thrives in the draft, is really defense, not linebackers though, but defensive guys for the most part, and like offensive line, and I guess quarterbacks, but obviously that's kind of like its own thing. But I think if you're gonna let him go, anyone that you can let go on the offensive line and you can like make younger and cheaper, because he's almost 29, going on 30 after the season. So I mean, if you don't bring him back, it's not that big of a loss, because I think you still got.
My thing is, in the draft, I think you got to focus a lot on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think you're going to solve your offensive problems in the draft. So I think you can solve some of the defensive ones in the draft. So my thing is, if you can just bring back some of these guys that will be solid for you, especially a depth guy like that, where he can kind of plug different holes. I think I'm good with bringing him back. I think that's a solid bring back. What just if you were to pick one or the other, resign or let walk?
I think you can let him walk, and then you can just bring in a young guy. Not that they want to focus their whole draft on the lineman, but it's like if you had to, I feel like you could replace him. So.
All right, this play, Brandon Bolton. He had a great season this year with James White going down. James White's coming back next year, so
James White's a free agent too.
What?
James White's a free agent.
White's not a free agent.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
Pretty sure he is.
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, he's under contract. But Brandon Bolton. I mean,
I bring him back. I don't think you're like. I don't think you, for what he offers you and for what he is, like what he's a special teamer, but he can also play like a variety of things in your offense. Mm-hmm. And he's been here for, I feel like he's been here forever. So I feel like he's been here in the system forever. I feel like every year I forget he's on the team, and then I see him in the game, and I'm like, he's still here.
Special teams, and then this year they started using him once White went down, and I was like, oh crap, he can play football. I was like, damn.
Yeah, I mean, like he's always been like he's always been like a reliable player. I think that they've had like in their system. He's getting older now, so I wouldn't expect them to bring him back on a matching deal of what he made last year. But I mean, I think you could bring him back on a shorter term deal with less money, and I think he'd probably take it just like for the security of it. Yeah, I'm sure I think he'll have competition though. I think he'll have like a market basically based on the fact that he was more versatile for you this year, and other teams would like to look at that. Kind of like I forget what team he's on now. I think he's on the Falcons or something like that. He was a receiver running back. Patterson. It was the same thing. Like he's so much more versatile now than when you had him, that he had a market. So like it's the same thing with Bolton. He showed his versatility, so now he's going to have more of a market. But at the same, I think you can bring him back.
I like him. I like him, but like he's going to have to compete for reps with White, Stevenson, and Harris. So I mean, you got some competition there.
I feel like he's a good fourth back though, because it's just someone that that you have the ball, like you can hand the ball to, and you have trust in at this point. So I would bring him back. I don't think it hurts you to bring him back.
Exactly. Next on my list is Matthew Slater. I think you got to bring him back.
I think you bring him back. He's only gonna be in the league for another like year. Like if he doesn't retire after this year, then he's retiring after next year. He's getting up there in age too. It's the same thing with a lot of these other guys that are veterans on your team: McCordy, Hightower, James White, even, and Brandon Bolton. So I think you bring him back. I don't think there's really a question there. I think both of us would agree. I don't even think we need to get into why. I think we would just both say bring him back. And it's not even for his versatility as like an offensive player, because he's technically listed as a receiver, but it's just for what he brings you on as a leader and on special teams. So that's like my vote is automatically bring him back. don't pay like him, don't pay out the ass for him, but I'd still bring him back.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think you're right. James White is a free agent. All right, my list was different. I just found another list. All right, that's the only difference in our two lists. But
I wouldn't bring back James White if I'm being honest.
Actually, if I was to pick between Bolton and James White, I think
I'd bring back Bolton.
I think you're better value in Bolton. I think you can get him cheaper. If you can get White cheap, I would take White because I think he's a better player. But Bolton, I'm good with taking.
White's more versatile on the
I would
offense.
take whoever you can get cheaper.
White's more versatile in your offense, but at the same time, it's like, sure, he's a receiving back kind of for you. So it's like you can like dump off to him and you can do more with him as far as like out in the open field and stuff. But I mean, Damian Harris was like I think he was the highest CFP rated running back last year. And he's been good for you. And then Stevenson's been good for you. And then you have, like, if you have Bolden back, then I don't really, I feel like you're fine. Or if you have JJ Taylor, who obviously was on this show, but I mean, if he's back, which I'm pretty sure he's going to be back, and I know he's smaller and stuff, but I feel like he's been making his way further and further up the roster and up the stat sheet and up just the depth chart. So if he can make his way into that rotation more, I think you don't really need James White. But I think like if you had to do it like that, I would bring back James White over Brandon Bolden. But I mean, I don't really care in that case because it's like they're both veteran running backs. So if you can make your running back room younger, then go ahead and do it because I feel like you were fine last year with your running back room and you didn't have James White like the whole time. Yeah. So if he gets offers from other places, I wouldn't like go matching any crazy offer for him because
exactly.
It's just kind of like guys you've had in your system, like they wear out after a while. And I feel like James White's definitely not in his prime at this point in his career. So.
Yeah, so I'm good with letting White walk. Slater, did you say Slater? Did you say sign or let walk?
I said keep him automatically. Yeah. I don't even think we need to get into why. I think you just keep him.
Yeah. All right. Next on the list is Brian Moyer, backup QB. I'm good with re-signing him. I think he's basically turned into a coach at this point.
I was gonna say I don't even care. Like you can bring him back, and I just keep him as like a practice squad QB. I wouldn't even bring him in.
Basically, he's been a coach at this point, and I don't think there's much explanation to this. I think it's just like his impact goes deeper than anybody outside of New England knows. I mean, he's been a good leader. He's serviceable when you need him. I mean,
I wouldn't say he's like serviceable, but I'd say he offers more on the clipboard and on the whiteboard than he offers you on the field. And I think that's huge for a guy like Mac Jones.
I mean, if we can let him walk and then sign him as a coach, I think it would be better for.
That's what I was going to say. If he offers to retire and you can bring him in as the QB coach or as an assistant on the offense, especially because you just lost your offensive coordinator. So why not bring in a guy that knows the offense? Seems like back and forth, like through and through, and his teaching all these young guys that. I mean, I'd be great to have him on the coaching roster. So I think. Either way, if you're bringing him back as like part of your staff or as a part of your roster, I'd bring him back. And it's not like he's going to ask you for a lot.
All right. Next on my list is Brandon King.
He's a free safety.
Yeah, he doesn't have much impact. I think you let him walk, bring in somebody else that will.
I don't think you need him.
Give you depth.
I mean, he's fine. It's like he's kind of one of those guys where it's like
I think I'd rather bring in somebody younger. He's 28 years old. I mean, you got to bring in some young guys, some new blood. I don't think there's any reason to bring him back.
I think that's an area where like I think you're going to continue to see Bill Belichick draft in that area and move towards like bringing in a younger.
Well, they drafted that kid last year, the Bledsoe kid, Joshua Bledsoe out of I think Missouri. He didn't play this year because he was injured, but he might be able to step into roles like that. So I think you let him go.
You have Cody Davis too, and he's not a free agent. So
yeah, next on my list is Jamie Collins. I'm fine with bringing him back. I'm fine with letting him walk. I'm kind of in the middle of it.
I'd let him go.
I mean, if they're gonna if they let him go just to trade for him, I think it's kind of a waste. I mean,
I would just let him go because here's my thing: is like you're gonna realize why.
But we do need some depth. Is my thing. We need some depth at the position. You can't just draft the full depth chart of the linebackers. So I'm thinking if you bring him back as a veteran, I mean, I'm fine with it.
Well, here's why I'd want to let him go.
Especially if you're not bringing back Hightower. He's
pretty cheap. why I want to let him go is because I'd rather have Hightower. Hightower, I'd rather have Hightower because I think he's more pivotal to your defense. I almost said offense, but your defense, and especially because if hopefully, I keep forgetting his name, which I have always been famous for, but um, the blonde kid again, I
Oh,
keep forgetting him.
Winovich.
Winovich. If you can get Winovich in and you can actually
Mhm.
start to use him and like actually make him like a factor in your offense, or Anthony Jennings, like these guys that you've drafted, these young kids that we haven't gotten to see on the field much, like I'd rather play them at those positions because Jamie Collins is an outside linebacker, which is exactly where like I would see either of those two players. So if you can have those two step up, then I'd much rather have that
Yeah.
than pay Jamie Collins, who is good, but like
Mm.
he's going to be 33 like in the next like by the end of next year, I'm pretty sure. So you
Yeah.
really again, it's like an age thing. It's like you
Mhm.
have these young guys that are waiting for their opportunity. And maybe they haven't earned their opportunity, but maybe if you hand it to them, then they'll step up in the right way. So I wouldn't bring him back.
All right. I'm in the middle on that one, but all right. Let's go rapid fire these last ones, because most of them are pretty straightforward. Nick Folk is a keep.
Bring him back.
Yeah, he's a bring back for me. Harvey Lange, I'm good letting. Oh no, they re-signed him already. They just it hasn't gone through yet.
I mean, that's
I
fine.
I
I
would
don't know much about him, but
Jakob Johnson, bring back, great
I
blocker.
feel like sure. I mean, either way, if you don't, you
He's
can
cheap.
replace him. If you don't,
Yeah.
you can replace him.
Troy Fumagalli, he's a tight end. Drop him. I don't think he really
I don't
matters.
care.
Therese Hall, linebacker. Um, I don't even know who that is, so
I
I
know
don't
who he is. They
care.
played like a couple of games last year. I think he was a practice squad guy. They brought him up. He had a couple good games. I think he had a couple of mistakes too. I mean, he's not someone that he can play both sides as far as linebackers go. So I guess bring him back just for the depth because he's younger. He's like 25.
Jawan
So
Bentley, I say bring him back.
I'd say bring him back. If he doesn't really step it up in this next contract, then I'd let him walk after it.
Yeah. Jacoby Myers, definitely a bring back for me.
I don't even need to say
Yeah.
why.
Gunner, I think if the deal's right, bring him back.
I'd
Uh,
bring him back either way.
I think if the deal's right, I wouldn't pay him too much, just because he is just a special teamer. But I think
Yeah,
if
but
the
that's
deal's
what
right,
they
you
thought
bring him
about
back.
Matthew Slater. And I'm not saying he's Matthew Slater or that he's going to be Matthew Slater. And everyone's like, he's Julian Edelman. And I don't think he's that either. But I think he's one of those guys that has character and that has like balls that you see on the field and you see him make plays. And yeah, maybe he's not perfect and he's not like the best guy, but he's someone you want to have because like when he break away like a punt return, like you don't realize how much you need that play until you need that play. And I think
Well,
he makes those plays for you. So I'd bring him back, even if it's like,
the
so I
special team
think
was so bad this year that he didn't even get to take or get as many returns.
that's what I'm saying. But like when he did have a good like blocking and he did have good units on the special teams, I think it was like very evident how much of an impact he could make on the
Yeah.
game. And if you put him in the right situation, I think he's very serviceable at pretty much most of your like is as a gunner, and it's kind of ironic, but as a gunner
Hmm.
or other things on your special teams, or even as a receiver, you've seen him have a decent game before. So I think he's just versatile. So you want to keep that on your
Yeah.
team. Plus, he's young and he has a personality, which people kind of attract to. So
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got. That's our list and our keepers or let go. I hope you guys liked the episode. Welcome back to one of the OGs.
glad to be
Yeah,
back.
make sure you go check us out on Instagram at offbeat_sports. Make sure you go check out our sponsor Celsius. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.